Now this panel has similar problems to the other side. I'm going to have to replace the edge here where it's mainly rusted halfway along, so I'll cut the whole edge off, and of course there was rust in the corner. Cut that off. The other damage is in this section, same as the other side. I've got a repair section for that, but this may come back a bit further. The rust has gone at least back to there, and I'll just check to see how pitted it is underneath. The drain hole for the fuel, that will have to be replaced in the repair section, so basically it fits okay onto the floor and onto the new sections I've put the inner guard, so that's okay. That's all working out well. So it's just a case of I'll do this edge first, so I've got the shape across the seam on the floor, and then I'll cut this in. So this will take a little bit of time, as it did on the other side, but certainly achievable. Anyway, so the last major rust section on the rear end, so it'd be good to get that done. Started working on the repairs to this panel, just TIG welded that in. Once again, the repair section's oversized. I've got to cut it down, so I'll do that later. It's come up quite nice. The TIG is certainly the way to go with a weld. Good penetration both sides, so no problem there. The piece I've got to do next is the front section. Now, I have a monocoque repair section for that. That's this one. I've just got to work out now where I'm going to cut it. Now I'll try not to use all of this repair section, but by the look of the damage to the panel, I'll probably have to use a fair bit around the bottom end here, because I've got rust holes up into here. So I'll certainly have to come back at least to there. But on this leading edge here, I'll probably only come back to there. So repair section probably come around here somewhere. But I'll make an initial cut. I'll just cut this off and then fit the panel up onto the car, just to make sure I've got the right position. The other problem with this is the fuel overflow. I've got to mark that on the repair section before I cut too much off, so I'll just cut some of these front bits off, fit it on the car, and then certainly mark where that is, and then go from there. I've been doing a little bit more metal finishing on the flanges here. As you recall, these were hand formed, so I've smoothed those out. Finish it off a bit in the corner there. So the welds are all finished, the surfaces are finished. What I'm now doing is putting the repair section in for this. This is the piece I'm repairing. Now all of this was rusted out, so I've cut it back to where I think I've got solid metal. Well, actually I know I've got solid metal. It's come back a fair way in here, so a little bit further than the other side, but the repair section I've got is enough to cover that. Only just, but it is enough. So what I'm now doing is just marking off where the cut will be on this repair section. Now what I'll do initially is to make this a little bit bigger, so I can then file the finish on the join. So that's what I'm about to do. It will take a while, actually take quite a while, but what I'll do first of all is to clamp this repair section back in and then drop this over the top and mark where the cut will be. So that's what I'm about to do. So hopefully, and I'll actually check it about 4 or 5 times. The reason being is once it's cut, it's cut. So I can't afford too much of a gap. A little bit of a gap's not a problem, but too much of a gap makes it harder to weld. But anyway, it'll take some time, but I'll start that process now. As I say, I'll put the repair section in first, get that into its correct position, which is around about that point, and then feed this over the top and then make the initial cut on this. So that's what I'm about to do. I'll finally finish fitting the repair section. I'm now tacking it in place. It's taken a while to get the seam right, but something you really need to spend time on if you're going to actually use a TIG. A little bit hard to clamp. Unfortunately, I've mostly got small C clamps. I've got 2 very large ones, very large long ones, but the problem with them is that when I clamp, there's so much clamp attached to it, sits out to about here and starts to bend the panel. So I've resorted to using magnets, at least to hold the piece into position. I won't weld near those because I can't get the TIG to weld near a magnet, but I've started down this end and I'm gradually putting tacks in, and I'm also planishing the tacks, and the reason being is that the little bit of heat that there is there is shrinking the panel, and that's tightening up the gap. This gap is very close as it is, and I can't afford too much shrinkage, as otherwise I'll end up getting up here and the panels won't meet. They'll actually be overlapping. So, but anyway, as you planish those, the gap comes back. So let's say there's not much gap there, but what little gap there is, I need to actually reposition the panel as I'm going. But slow process. It's getting there. I've got to tack this all the way around first, and once I've done that, then I'll run the TIG weld along the seam. So it's a long way off yet, but anyway, it'll get there in the end. I finished TIG welding this repair section in place. It worked out quite well. A couple of blow-throughs, but I guess I'll get better as I get more experience with the TIG. The finish is quite good. Got a little bit of metal work to do. Just around here, I can straighten that a lot more. When I say straighten it a lot more, the weld is quite flat to the hand. If you put a straight edge on there, there's a few little ripples in the weld that I've got to, well, not that I have to, but I will straighten out. They'd fill with body filler. The thickness of the filler might be about a 32nd of an inch. Less than a millimetre, much less than a millimetre. So there's very little distortion left. As I say, just a few things I might clean up. Might put a little bit more weld in a couple of areas that are a bit low, but all in all, it's not bad. I've run that through an English wheel to recurve it. So I've just finished doing that. so I'll spend a bit more time on this weld. I still have to trim off the rear there, but I'll fit that and make sure I've cut it to the right area. So that's got to be done. And there's also a few areas along here where the flange is really in need of replacement in certain places. To drill this out was quite difficult, and there were spot welds were sort of put in very irregular places, so when you drill it out there's not much flange left, even here, although that's probably able to be plug welded in. But certainly up here I'll probably repair a section of this flange to make it more solid. But anyway, I'll trim this, just finish this a bit more. In the end it will require very, very minimal filler. With this panel off, of course, it's a lot easier to metal finish than it was on the car, but even so, it takes quite some time, but I think I can get that a little bit better. So I don't mind using body filler, but very minimal filler. So that's what I'm aiming at with this car. So there's no sense in just having things rough and then hiding all the problems with filler. That's certainly not the intention. And seeing I'm the one who ends up preparing the car for paint, and more than likely I'll paint this as well, I like to make sure it's as good as it can be. I've finished making the panel repairs. This front section's come in nicely. It's all been smoothed out. Put a new piece of flange down the bottom, and I've trimmed most of that. I've still got to cut that corner off a bit, but all in all, that's pretty close. What I'm doing now is putting the petrol drain in before I forget, and I'm using copper. They use steel. I just happen to have copper. I don't have any steel. And I'm going to silver solder that in. Now I've got it sticking out at the moment. That's only so I can hold it in place while I silver solder, and then I'll grind that off or sand it off. So I'm not worried about that being out there. It just makes it easier to get a good silver soled seal around here. So I'll do that next, and I'll put this back on the vehicle and not weld it in place yet, but certainly fix it in place with Tech screws, and get ready to move on to the next part of the repair to this area. This quarter panel is now finished. The last bit was the drain hole for the fuel. I've brazed that in with silver solder. Fits quite well all the way along. It's that new flange. It's all been trimmed off. So what I'll be doing next is I'll just put some undercoat on just to preserve the metal, some high zinc undercoat, and then I'll use some probably Clecos to hold this in place. What I've decided to do is to actually finish this side first. So once I've got this clipped in place, then I'll work on this rear wing. So I might as well keep working on this to get it all complete, and So I'll just complete the fitting of all the repair sections on this side. Right, I've both tech screwed and clecoed this in place now. What I need to do, or what I'm about to do, is to find where I need to cut this off. Now, it is too long, and what happens is this is where the bumper bar, the front bolt, goes through somewhere around here. Now, to make sure I've got the right positioning for that, I need to put the bumper bar on to make sure that the mounting bolts will line up. So I've got to have one lines up here, one lines up there, and one lines up in the rear panel there. So that's what I've got to do. The problem I have is that there is a bit of damage to the bumper bar that I've got to repair first before I can actually put it on, because it was hit in the rear end. Bumper bar is not badly damaged, but the mounts have been pushed out of alignment, so I need to look at that now.